Children, let's continue with the story. I lived with a man once who used to make me mad that way. So he also was a bachelor and living with someone or other, like uh, as a tenant. So once he used to live with a man who used to do the same thing, and he used to become very angry. He would loll on the sofa and watch me doing things by the hour together. And then he would just sit sometimes if we were going together, then he would just sit on the sofa and relax and see the poor author that he was doing all the odd jobs and for hours together, for several hours. He said it did him real good to look on at me messing about. He used to say that he felt very good when the author was creating a chaos with his things while packing. Now I am not like that. I can't sit still and see another man slaving and working. So he says that he wasn't like that. He just could not do that, to sit down and see that some other man is doing all the work. So I want to get up and superintend and walk around with my hands in my pockets and tell him what to do. It is my energetic nature, I can't help it. So author is saying that you can see the humor in these lines, that he could not see anyone working while he's sitting, so he just wanted to get up, put his hands in his pockets, otherwise so he's not doing anything, but he wanted to tell the other person as to what was to be done. He wanted to superintend. Superintend means supervise, and so that is, it's my nature which is full of energy. I can't help it, he says. However, I did not say anything but started packing. So he just saw them sitting, his two friends, and he started packing. He didn't react to it. It seemed a longer job than I had thought. He said it was a very long job it was going to be, that I thought it was going to be, but I got the bag finished at last and I sat on it and strapped it. So uh, he at last finished packing the clothes, and then he closed the bag and put a strap around it, tied it. Aren't you going to put the boots in? Said Harris. Now Harris asked him, you haven't put your boots inside. Are you not going to pack them? And I looked around and found I had forgotten them. Then when the author looked around, he thought, oh my God, he had forgotten to pack his shoes. They're just like Harris, and this Harris was just like that. He could have said a word until I'd got the bag shut. No, he couldn't have said a word until I'd got the bag shut and strapped, of course. So the Harris was being naughty. He knew that he hasn't packed the shoes, but because he always bragged that he was the best person who could do packing, so he wanted to tease him. And when he had just finished packing the bag and closing it down, then only Harris told him that he has forgotten to pack his shoes. He could have said earlier also when the bag was not packed, but it was just like Harris. Harris used to do like that only. And George laughed, and the other friend, he started laughing, one of those irritating, senseless laughs of his. So he used to laugh like that. Which used to make the author very angry, and it was senseless also. It was stupid also. They do make me so wild, and the author went very crazy with anger. I opened the bag and packed the boots in, and then, just as I was going to close it, a horrible idea occurred to me. So when he again opened the bag and he packed the boots in, and just then, when he was about to close the bag, one sudden thought came to me. It was a very bad, horrible, it was a very horrifying, scaring kind of a thought. Had I packed my toothbrush? The author says, have I packed my toothbrush? I don't know how it is, but never do know whether I've packed my toothbrush. He says, I don't know how this happens, but every time I do my packing, I just don't remember if I have packed my toothbrush or not, because it's a very essential thing in the morning. You have to clean your teeth. My toothbrush is a thing that haunts me when I am traveling and makes my life a misery. He says that this toothbrush of his was something which used to disturb him when he was going to travel and makes his life so miserable by just thinking of it. I dream that I haven't packed it and wake up in a cold perspiration. He says that sometimes I just dream that I haven't packed my toothbrush and I suddenly wake up and I break into a cold sweat. Cold perspiration, ठंडे पसीने में भीग जाते हैं, and get out and of bed and hunt for it. Then in the middle of the night, then he would get up and try to search it. And in the morning, I pack it before I have used it. And in the morning, what he does is that before he has brushed his teeth, he has packed the toothbrush. And have to unpack again to get it. Then he'll again open the bag, get the toothbrush, and it is always the last thing I turn out of the bag. So this is the last thing which he takes out of the bag, right? To brush his teeth, and then I repack and forget it. And again he has packed his bag, and again he has forgotten to put the toothbrush in it, and have to rush upstairs for it at the last moment, and then again run upstairs to get his toothbrush in the last minute or the last moment. So that means he never is able to pack his toothbrush properly and carry it to the railway station wrapped up in my pocket handkerchief. Then at last what happens is that he has not packed his toothbrush and he is carrying it in his pocket handkerchief, which is meant for other purposes like wiping your face and mouth etc. तो समझे आप इसका मतलब कि जो टूथब्रश है ना ऑथर का, वो उसको बहुत तंग करता है. वो क्या करते हैं, रात को उनको सपना आता है कि जो है टूथब्रश नहीं रखा, तो वो जाके निकल के अपने बिस्तर से भाग के जाके अपना टूथब्रश पैक कर लेते हैं. अब मॉर्निंग में उनको याद आता है अरे मैं तो पैक कर लिया, तो फिर से वो उसको अनपैक करते हैं क्योंकि उनको टूथब्रश करना है जाने से पहले. उसके बाद नीचे आते हैं तो उधर उन्होंने बैग अपना बंद कर लिया है, फिर उनको याद आता है कि उसको तो ऊपर भूला है, फिर वापस भागते हैं और उसको फिर एट लास्ट अपनी पॉकेट हैंकरचीफ में रख कर तब जाते हैं. Of course, I had to turn every mortal thing out now, and of course, I could not find it. तो अब जब उनको लगा, when he thought कि he has forgotten his toothbrush, so mortal thing means here ordinary or trivial. Here it is spoken in frustration. So he takes out everything from the bag, but he could not find the toothbrush. I rummaged the things up into much the same state that they must have been before the world was created and when chaos reigned. He says that he rummaged means searched in a hurried and a careless manner, and he put the things in such a disorder that in a very kind of a you can say a humorous note, he says that the things were now in a state when the world was created and there was no order in the world. Chaos means disorder. Reign means ruled. So when the disorder ruled the earth and the world was not created, at that time the things were in a state of topsy-turvy. So Here also it has happened. Of course, I found George and Harris's 18 times over. So he got the toothbrush of George and Harris at least 18 times. But I couldn't find my own. But the author could not find his own toothbrush. So I put the things back one by one. So one after another, he put the things back and held everything up and shook it. And then he held everything up and shook the bag. I found it inside a boot, and so where did he find his toothbrush? It was inside a boot. I repacked once more. So again he packed the package. When I had finished, George asked if the soap was in. Then George asked if he had put the soap. I said I didn't care a hang whether the soap was in or whether it wasn't, and I slammed the bag shut and strapped it. So the author was now so angry that when he was asked if he had kept the soap or not, then he says that he didn't care at all if it was there or if it was not there. So he just slammed the bag, means पटक देना, and bag shut. उसने बहुत तेज़ी से उसको he shut the bag and strapped it, और उसके ऊपर जो strap होता है वो उसको कस दिया. And found that I had packed my tobacco pouch in it. Author used to smoke, so he found that he has packed his tobacco pouch in it. पहले क्या करते हैं ना, उसमें पहले सिगरेट बनाते हैं. You have a paper, they roll the paper, put the tobacco in it, and then they smoke it. So the author had put the tobacco pouch inside the bag and had to reopen it. So again he had to reopen the bag. It got shut up finally at 10:05 p.m. So in the night at around 5 minutes past 10, the packing was at last over, and there remained the hampers to do. And after that, only the picnic baskets were to be packed. Harris said that we should be wanting to start in less than 12 hours time, and thought that he and George had better do the rest, and I agreed and sat down, and they had a go. So after that, now when he had finished the packing after much harassment and much trouble, now it was the turn of Harris. He says because they have to start in the morning at around 10 o'clock after 12 hours, so there was very less time and they had to rest also. So he offered that Harris and George, both of them, will pack the picnic basket and or put all the edibles in it. So now it was their turn to mess up the whole thing. They began in a light-hearted spirit, so they were very happy when they started the work. They thought, oh, it's nothing, only the edibles had to be kept, evidently intending to show me how to do it. And they were very confident, and it was obvious their intention was, and they wanted to show the author that how a hamper is made. I made no comment, I only waited. So author didn't say anything, he just waited. With the exception of George, Harris is the worst packer in this world, and I looked at the piles of plates and cups and kettles and bottles and jars and pies and stoves and cakes and tomatoes, etc., and felt that the thing would soon become exciting. So what happened was, he knew that George was the worst packer in the world, with the exception Apwad. Exception means Apwad. Except George, who was also very bad at packing. So they both were the worst packers in the world. And when he looked at the heap of plates, cups, kettles, bottles, jars, pies are small cakes, and stoves and big cakes and tomatoes, etc., he says, now let us see how do they do it. And he knew that the things will be very interesting and exciting from then on. It did. They started with breaking a cup. So this so happened because they started packing, and the first thing they did was to break a cup. That was the first thing they did. They did that just to show you what they could do and to get you interested. So they just wanted him to become interested in what they were doing. Then Harris packed the strawberry jam on top of a tomato. So Harris, what he did was that he packed a strawberry jam, a bottle of a strawberry jam, on top of a tomato and squashed it, and they had to pick out the tomato with a teaspoon. So squashed it means they crushed it, and then that would have spoiled everything rest. So they had to take it out with the help of a teaspoon. And then it was George's turn, and he trod on the butter. And now it was George's turn to do something wrong. And what he did was he walked on the butter. I didn't say anything, but I came over and sat on the edge of the table and watched them. He says author didn't say anything as to what they were doing. He just came over and he sat on the edge of the table and started watching that what they were doing. It irritated them more than anything I could have said. He says they were very angry with him. Had he said something, perhaps they wouldn't be angry, but then sitting and watching them doing it, that made both of them very angry. I felt that. It made them nervous and excited, and they stepped on things and put things behind them and then could not find them when they wanted them, and packed the pies at the bottom and put heavy things on top and smashed the pies in. So he could feel that they were very irritated, and because they had become very nervous because he was watching, and they become a little bit of excited. And what they did was they were stepping on things, and they used to put things at their backs, and then when they didn't find them, then they would search for them, and then they ultimately would find them. And what they did was the soft pies were put at the bottom and the heavier things were put above them, so they got crushed. They upset salt over everything. They spilled the salt. And as for the butter, I never saw two men do more with 1 and 2 pence worth of butter in my whole life than they did. So what they did with the butter, which was a very small amount of butter, which was of 1 and 2 pence, so they did so many things with it. After George had got it off his slipper, first George put it on his, he had walked over it, so it was on his slippers. Say they tried to put it in the kettle, so he removed it from there, and then they put it into the kettle, and the kettle is in which tea is made. It wouldn't go in, and